Many drivers ask me, Patrick, what is a good lease? What is a good truck payment? And I'll be honest, sometimes I assume people already know this. I forget that we're all human sometimes. But a lot of drivers were never taught the math behind lease purchase programs. They were never shown how to compare lease costs to what a true owner operator would pay in the open market. So today, I want to explain this to you factually, because once you understand the comparison, the issue starts becoming a lot more clearer to you. For 2020-2024 Freightliner Cascadia, Kenworth T680, or Peterbilt 579, industry benchmarks generally look like this. Standard carrier lease purchases are roughly $550 to $850 per week. Newer or premium equipment are roughly between $900 to $1,000 per week. When weekly truck payments move into this $1,200 and $1,600 range, that is no longer typical compared to what broader market benchmarks are. And at that point, this is where the payment deserves closer scrutiny, because especially when it's combined with other fixed weekly charges. Let's do straightforward math with this. Let's keep this as simple as possible. $1,300 per week. Multiply that by 52 weeks. That equals $67,600 per year. That figure is only for the truck payment, not fuel, insurance, maintenance, or any other deductions. The key question drivers should ask is really simple. How does this compare to what an independent owner-operator would pay for similar equipment? Independent owner-operators financed through banks or captive lenders such as PACCAR, Daimler typically report $2,000 to $3,000 per month for newer trucks, roughly $460 to $700 per week if you break it down like that. Not every owner-operator pays the same. Credit, down payment, market conditions matter. But as a benchmark, these figures are widely recognized. So when a lease purchase payment is significantly higher than this range, the difference isn't about ownership, okay? It's about structure. This is where the confusion really happens. Lease purchase programs usually do not compare their costs to independent owner-operator benchmarks. Instead, the costs are presented individually. Truck payment. Lease drivers may see $1,200, $1,300, $1,600 a week presented as the standard. Compared to owner-operator benchmarks, that payment is often substantially higher for similar equipment. Insurance. Lease drivers are often charged $400 to $500 per week for insurance. Independent owner-operators with comparable coverage often report way lower weekly equivalents, frequently in the $200 to $250 per week range, depending on risk and the history and the driving record. There's many different outcomes for insurance. Bobtail and occupational accident coverage. Lease programs frequently charge $40 to $60 per week for these items. In the open market, similar policies are often priced on a monthly basis, but commonly around $40 to $70, per month. That difference adds up over time. Trailer rent. Lease drivers may be charged $400 and $500 a week for trailer use. In the broader rental market, trailers are often available for $150 to $150 per week range, depending on the type and the availability. Again, it's not always identical because trailers are different priced, but consistently lower in most of these cases, almost 80% of them. Each charge by itself may not appear unreasonable, okay? But when multiple categories are priced above owner-operator benchmarks and combined with mandatory deductions, limited load selection, company-controlled freight, the result is a fixed cost structure that places most of the financial risk on the driver. Whenever this math is discussed, the strongest pushback usually doesn't come from independent drivers. It often comes from company employees, their dispatch, their safety, accounting, or their office staff. Most of them are not acting in bad faith. They simply just don't see the weekly settlements, the full deduction totals, comparative owner-operator benchmarks. And without those numbers, the structure looks normal to them. But intent does not change math. A company can have good people and still operate a lease structure that is financially unfavorable to drivers. And here's the bad part about all of this. If you're not grossing consistently, and I mean five, six, seven, $8,000 a week, week after week, by the time you pay your truck payment, your fuel, your insurance, your escrow, and all those other weekly deductions, there's often very little left, if anything, as a paycheck. That's not emotion, that's arithmetic. For most solo drivers running standard OTR freight, that level of consistent gross is extremely difficult to maintain. It usually requires very high weekly miles, minimal downtime, no breakdowns, no interruptions. In other words, a driver has to operate at an unsustainable pace just to stay even. And this is where the drivers need to be very careful at. If a lease only works under near perfect conditions, it's not a stable business model, drivers. A high weekly truck payment is not automatically predatory, but when payments exceed the owner-operator benchmarks, insurance and add-ons are priced above market ranges, freight is controlled, and risk is shifted almost entirely to the driver, drivers deserve to slow down and examine these numbers very carefully. This is not about emotion, and it's not about loyalty. It's about comparison. If you're in a lease and the math feels tight, that doesn't automatically mean you're doing something wrong. It may mean the structure itself is the problem. Here at Big Rig Nation, we look at numbers, not narratives, and we definitely don't listen to people's opinions. You've already noticed that. If you want to help understand, your lease, send your settlements. We'll compare them to real benchmarks, and I'll give you a really straight answer. If you're in a lease and the math feels tight, that doesn't. Oh, shit. Rita, close that door.